Hey everyone, Adam from TWG here, and I'm really excited about the launch of our YouTube channel. We're going to be doing several series, and one of them is going to focus on woodworkers and woodworking businesses from around the world. I'm going to interview them, get to know them, and get to know the stories that really make them who they are. I'm really excited about this opportunity, and because I have a partnership with Panasonic and their Lumix division, I get to bring these stories to you through their incredible equipment. And though I'm not paid by them in any way, shape, or form, I'm really excited that I get to work with them as a company. So with that, for our first video in this series, I want to introduce you to Rob, the owner of Dashboard Portable Workshop. He's an amazing guy, and he sat down with me, a guy who's not super experienced in interviews, but he let me be my first one, and I'm really excited to share it with you. So with that, enjoy. All right, Rob, so I'm kind of team Dashboard now, and we spent some time outside. You showed me the setup. I got my hands on the bench, and this thing is impressive. I mean, I think several times I was a little short for words because every time you showed me, well, it can do this, and then this, and then this, and then add that. At first glance, I would have said, okay, it's a workbench and it's built well. That's great, but that's what I would have left it at. But you showed me that it's far more than that. And so as much as I appreciate the product, I want to get to know you, the person behind the product. I know we talked outside about, I see your ingenuity in this, and I can see where you saw things and then thought, I can do better than that, or I can fix this. So I just want to talk to you and have a conversation about it. I want to get to know you better. So my first question is just from the very beginning. If we went back to step one, how did Dashboard get started? Where did this whole thing come from?
Well, I was working as a finish carpenter and cabinet installer. I also built cabinets for people. Having some kind of a work surface at a job site was always a challenge. The typical setup that someone would have would be some sawhorses, maybe with an old door on top or a piece of plywood, and it's a place where you can put things, but it's not very effective as a work surface. And I think particularly when track saws started to come into more common use, then it started to make more sense that like this track saw is really cool, and you can use it in ways you couldn't use any other saw. And it started to make sense to me to figure out how to organize a track saw, mostly to make things just easier for myself. I wasn't thinking about anything other than my own scraping by to make a living.
This didn't start off as like, hey, I want to start a company, I'm jumping in. This was, I have a personal problem I'm trying to address here, and that's what started it?
Yes, well, I got my first track saw in 2008, so I was very familiar with it for a couple of years, and I had a particular job come up that required me to build some cabinets in a library in a big house in Denver, and because the walls were particularly weird, I couldn't pre-build anything because the scribing was so severe. So I bought the Festool MFT3, and then because A, it was the only thing around at the time, and B, I had their power tools, which I thought then and still think are wonderful. So I thought, oh, this table's going to be the same. And I bought it just for that job, and immediately I was disappointed. And so it was not stable. It was a strange size, and the cross-cutting equipment that came with it was unreliable. So I tried to work with it for almost 2 years, and I just in the end became so frustrated that I put it in the corner. And I started thinking that I would have to figure something out that for myself that would be more stable, bigger, and just more reliable.
So you started Dashboard, or at least the first iteration of creating a workbench because of a job you had. When did it start to shift towards maybe this becomes a company? I mean, did you at some point decide this will become a company and go, or was it something that naturally happened?
It was, I had been making various versions of the bench. They were a lot less sophisticated than this, and just using them around town. And so I developed one thing after another to kind of go with it, but it was mostly just a table. So I would get comments from guys in other trades, and sometimes in the same trades, and sometimes homeowners, that they were impressed. Like this one woman whose house I was working in, she goes, "I don't know what this is, but I love it." And that was when I was a little farther along, but I got to the point where I felt like my ability to continue as a carpenter because of my age was declining, just like the workload, because I was typically a one-man show.
Okay.
And it was just getting to be really hard on me. So I started to think about whatever I could do to make that easier. And a lot of people watching this might be familiar with it, but I had a workshop, which was not at home. So I would work there and work in the field. But if I was going to go to the field to install something, I would have to take tools with me. So just think of it: in the morning, you load up your tools in your truck. That takes some time, that takes some energy. When you get to where you're going, you unload and set up. That takes some time and energy. And the same thing at the end of the day. So I started thinking about, what is the smallest number of tools I can take to do whatever the job is, and how can I most effectively use those? So I realized that with the track saw, you have the ability to do things that you can cut out the use of other tools. And so like if I could use the track saw to do something that I would normally do with a table saw, well, then I don't have to take my table saw. So it saves me some more effort. Or if I don't have to take the chop saw and the chop saw stand, that saves me some time and energy. And so I found that on a typical, like say, kitchen cabinet install, most of your cuts are right angles, and it's toe kicks and cutting fillers and doing some scribing. But I found that this, with some of my rudimentary first ideas at cross-cutting setups, was enough most of the time to do the job. So it really was, it started out of just me trying to make my own life easier. And at a certain point, my wife had taken a leave of absence from her job for mental health reasons, and for a year, and she's a middle school teacher. So I carried the household earnings burden for a year, and then when she went back to work, it was like, okay, it was my time to do my thing. So I took several months just to develop a whole system kind of at once, and I didn't do any paying work. So that was when I made the first 8 dashboard systems, such as they were at the time. I bought a small metal mill. I taught myself to be a rudimentary machinist. So I was making all these little metal things, aluminum things, by hand on a manual mill. And I could never do it a second time, but I was dedicated. And so I came up with the first generations of the all metal table and accessories.
You talk about one of your original models. What are we looking at here?
Well, this is probably not the first generation, but probably the second. I began with everything made of plywood. Then the only metal was like the aluminum leg braces, and some T-track. I bought like anybody would buy anywhere, and screwed to the side. And then I just padded out that depth with some wood above it and below it, so that at the time I was thinking, well, I can just put a clamp in there and hold something to the side of it to work on that, and it was effective. I hadn't really thought about how to set up cutting on it. And there are probably some cuts visible in that, and there were many generations of the wooden version, and I just began to incorporate increasing amounts of aluminum.
And so at some point in this version or subsequent versions, did you ever have a thought of maybe this can help people besides me? Clearly this came, it sounds like, from a place of you saying, I have a particular issue. This is my jig to fix it, for lack of a professional word. Did you have an aha moment or something that just said, maybe other people need this too.
Yes. Well, I mentioned, spending several months building, my first group of what I considered the system at the time. This was 2018, maybe. And those went to guys I knew locally, who were, sort of supportive and really interested in having that. So after that, I kind of didn't quite know where to go with it, and I still needed to try to earn a living. But I was reading on the Festool Owners Group forum that someone was looking for. I just happened to see this post. I mean, it was blind luck. There's a guy in Canada looking for a version of what's called the rail hinge that comes with the Festool table that would fit his homemade table. And since I had already made my own version of that for my tables, I wrote to him and I said, like, I can make this for you. And I said, I had an Etsy store at the time, and I said, I'll make it, I'll put it on the Etsy store, and I'll write to you right away, and then you can just order it. So he said, great. And so I made half a dozen of these, what came to be known as the guide rail bracket. And thinking, it's better to make 6 than to make 1. And so I put them on the store, and he immediately bought it. But 2 or 3 other guys bought it the same afternoon. And so they must have only heard about it there on that forum.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happened, I thought, oh, maybe there's something to this. And that's where it really started in terms of thinking of it as a business.
So then when did Dashboard, the name, come into it? Like, did you have prototype named, or was it just like my Etsy bench?
My wife and I got a dog in 2012, our first dog, and we named him Dash. And he was the center of our lives. And so we were with family for the holidays in 2012 and talking about this idea I had and what it should be called. And we had been talking about the dog a lot, and and my sister just blurted out, call it the Dashboard. And
wow.
So it works on multiple levels. Yes, it honors Dash the dog, but it's also, it refers to portability. It refers to a surface, and more sort of, if you zoom out a little bit, a dashboard is like a control center. So it's really designed conceptually and physically as a sort of a foundation of a workspace. You can create, anywhere there's a solid surface to put it on, that helps you organize your work, use your tools more effectively, and get more out of that than you ever could out of a sheet of plywood over some sawhorse. A
question I get a lot in the woodworking group, and I see it in the forums pretty often, is about starting a business. I think it's safe to assume, and hearing a little bit of the backstory here, starting it wasn't easy. What were some big challenges, or some of those hurdles you first had to get over to take whatever step that was? What did that look like?
You take a leap of faith. So the first batch of guide rail bracket parts was a small batch. I think it was like 25 sets or something. And I sat at the dining room table with my wife, and with the last $6,000 I had, and we held hands when I pressed the button to send the money. And so that was a nervous time, but it started everything and led to where we are now.
You talk about a leap of faith. Are you the kind of person where that comes naturally? You say, hey, here's a hurdle, here we go? Or was that like pulling teeth for you? When you were starting Dashboard, did you have to overcome like emotional roadblocks, like mental roadblocks to become successful?
The more you do certain things, the easier they get. And like there's a saying that's, be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid. And it turns out that's mostly true. But if you've never done it, you don't recognize that. And it's not like I could count on it, but it often happens. So it seems that if you treat people well, and you are earnest and humble, then the wheels turn in the right direction.
So you mentioned family. You mentioned your wife and your sister earlier. What role have they played, and what's it like? Not that I'm asking you to speak for them, but if you had to maybe summarize some of their thoughts and feelings watching you go through this, especially your wife, what is that like?
As far as my wife is concerned, she's always supported me. She's never said, I don't know, I don't think you're gonna make it. Like, she's always had that faith that's frankly astonishing. And she's always backed me up with, whatever I needed. So, I mean, I owe her so much for that.
So when it came to the design of this, you talked about different iterations and versions of it. What were some of those key problems? Maybe even like in later editions, like what kind of key problems did you come across or can keep coming across that you wanted to address?
I said, whatever I do has to be rigid. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about leg design and how to make them like not be flexible on their own, but also in the way that they attach to the bench. So I went through 16 bad ideas before I had the 17th good one.
Yeah.
And it's remained the same, just with a little, some differences in, how the legs were made, and what the leg brace material was. But that was effectively it. And it's really simple. It's not like there's a magic in the solution. It's just, having the right idea.
Out of all the attachments and features, and you showed me a lot, and I'm excited to utilize the heck out of all of them. Do you have like a personal favorite, or one where you think to yourself, geez, that was a home run idea right there?
The outrigger. That's my favorite thing. Because I had thought for thinking for probably 2 years, how do I solve this problem? And I just couldn't come up with the answer. And then one day, I finally realized it, and the first manifestation of an outrigger was nothing like what it is now. I mean, not even close, but it had the effect of holding up the other half of a sheet of plywood. And so the first time I put a sheet of plywood on the combination of the bench and the proto outrigger and made a cut the full length and nothing fell over and I didn't have to hold it up, it's like the heavens opened up and I was like, oh, this is it. And this is the best thing ever. And so having realized that, and then done multiple iterations of it and fleshed it out with its own little attachments, for me, that's just the coolest thing in the world.
When it comes to a consumer, someone who looks at this bench and goes, this is the solution for me, what is something you hope they experience when they unbox it and they get all the accessories put on and they start trying it out? What's that thing, or do you have a thing where you're like, I hope they appreciate blank?
I hope people will really appreciate how it feels in your hands, how substantial everything is, how well machined it is. We've put a lot of effort into something as simple as the knobs, many versions of knobs, to get to the point where they're the right size, they're the right feel, and they're comfortable to use, and you don't bang a knuckle on anything. And we had some knobs that were really not kind to the hands in part of the development of all this. So I hope that they experience the sort of, they're able to perceive how much thought went into it, but also how comforting it is to use, feeling like you know what's going to happen when you do something, because it's really solid and it's easy to arrange, and so versatile. And people come to me they show me setups that I never thought of. So there's potential that I haven't actually envisioned that people come up with on their own. So I just hope that they feel like it's a canvas they can start painting on.
Were you the kind of kid, like, is this something you can like see in people? Did someone see it in you, like you were gonna become a woodworker, a creator? Was that something that could be identified in you, or is that something that came later on?
I think they recognized my creativity. I mean, my parents and my family. But I was a bit of a recluse, and would, just go do my own thing a lot of the time. And it was usually, I did a lot of drawing, or just sort of imaginary things. And I mean, I enjoyed team sports, but I never felt like, I never had much confidence to sort of express myself publicly. So, I mean, we did do some, woodcraft at home. As I said, my father always had a shop. We would make, gifts out of wood. I was in Cub Scouts. We did the Pinewood Derby. There was a thing called the Rocket Derby, which was like the Pinewood Derby, but involved a catapult and wooden rockets. In 8th grade, we had a project, like it was an English class. It was like you could choose to write, I think it was anything. It's just like you had to write about a thing and then build a model of it. And I chose the P-38 Lightning. And it's an airplane from World War II, for those who don't know. My father helped me build it. I did most of the work. That was the first time I really did something serious. And that still exists, and it's still pretty impressive considering what was available to help me, or to use, and what knowledge I had, which was nothing.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And but I don't think, I mean, I made these things, but I never really thought of pursuing that as some sort of lifestyle, because I was more into athletics.
I just love the fact that you remember it. I think those moments were special, and I imagine a lot of parents wonder if they kind of had that impact on their kids. But sitting down and doing a project, clearly you still remember and you're still proud of it. I mean, I think that's really neat. And talking about influences, who is someone, and maybe it's one person, maybe it's a group, but who has influenced your approach to woodworking, to being a craftsman, to being a creator over time?
I was into track and field from like junior high school. And in high school, I switched to cycling. So I got really into bike racing. Right through college, and at the time, there was a French guy who's named Bernard Hinault. He was a
him?
That's Bernard Hinault.
Okay.
He won the Tour de France 5 times, and I know that won't mean much to a lot of people, but he was effectively my inspiration because he had a pugnacious character, a lot of panache, and he was known for being extremely determined. And so I was like, I could model myself on that. And because I was already determined, but so I just thought this is going to be my inspiration, really. I mean, I can't say that I ever had a hero necessarily, but it's like, it made me push myself much harder, probably trying to emulate his style than I would have otherwise. And that is something that carries through to other areas of life. So it's like, if I was going to draw something or paint something or build something, like I'm not satisfied with something normal, I guess you'd call it. Like I always had to push it to an extreme.
And I mean, that's gotta, and I mean, I can say from watching you interact with this workbench when we were setting up and you were teaching me about it, clearly your desire to push what's standard is visible in the outcome of this project. I mean, I imagine that mentality has helped you a ton in creating and running a business that produces a high-end workstation.
Yes. I mean, I think another lesson from athletics is just learning how to suffer. Because suffering is a huge part of starting a business. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. But there are so many repeated terrible challenges, physical and emotional. And just being able to absorb them is really important. And I feel like athletics taught me to suffer, and all those things came together ultimately to allow this dashboard to happen.
I know you're a busy guy. I know running a business is time consuming. You have a family. There's a lot going on. When you do get that moment in the shop, which might only be once a month for you, I'm not sure, but you finally get just a couple minutes to yourself, What is something that you like to build yourself or work on? Like if you had a project, you're like, it's not business related, I can just enjoy being in the shop. What does that look like for you?
I'm happiest when I'm just making anything pretty much. Whether that's, baking bread or building a table. And I get a lot of satisfaction from doing things for myself that most people would pay money to buy. Because it feels like anybody can buy something, but not everybody can make it. So I do get a lot of satisfaction from being able to make what I need. I have extremely limited time to pursue personal projects in the shop. What do? I think about things I'd like to do, and I'd really like to build us a dining table. I'd really like to build us a coffee table. I'm getting closer to being able to do that, but really, I feel like when things have been going pretty rough, just in the day-to-day struggle with the business, if I'm able to carve out a section of time to just make something, and it's usually, I have to film everything I make because I always need content, but I memean, that's creating, and that's where I'm happiest. So even if it's just something really simple, like some cabinet that's going on the wall in the shop, if I have to film it, it does tend to take a lot of my worries away.
You talk about the creativity, the doing things yourself. I mean, woodworking has evolved a lot, even in my lifetime. What have you seen change in woodworking, and then where do you see it going?
Well, I started doing this kind of on a daily basis in 1990. So, I mean, at the time, that was my first sort of real job. I was cutting 2x4s and drilling holes in them and sanding them by hand for this company that made storage products. So everything was just so rudimentary. And I think things have come around to the point where a person with relatively little experience can get a much better result than was possible when I started, because the quality of tools has improved, and just what you can do with tools, like the sort of variety of things that's available is much greater, and it's a lot more of where you can take the tool to the work, rather than in the older days you had to take the work to the tool. And the advent of 3D printing has opened up tremendous possibilities for making our own, jigs and fixtures and stuff. And I was kind of a late adopter, but I've forced myself to learn how to do some rudimentary modeling, and we have a number of printers, and I use them all the time to sort of flesh out my ideas. So I think a lot of people have access to that. And so, like I said, the technology has improved, and I mean, you still need to put in the time. But when I started there, YouTube wasn't around, so it was harder to learn. Now it's easy to learn if you want to.
Where do you see Dashboard 5 years, 10 years from now? What does next steps look like?
We would like to become more recognized as a brand, because we're still quite small. So we have a good reputation, but not that many people know about us.
I imagine some of the things you've experienced with Dashboard have come from the people using it, where they say, hey, can it do this? Or why can't I do that? And I imagine that gets the wheels turning to then push you to create that next thing.
Lots of people offer ideas, and they're mostly good ones. It's a real challenge, just as a business, but as for me individually, because I love new ideas. I'm always thinking of new stuff, and on a one item basis, it's easy to say, oh, I'm going to make this thing for this guy, so he can have what he wants, and that'll make both of us happy. and I love that. And I'm often sort of chastised by the crew for doing things like that. But as a business, it's very hard to implement a new idea when just because one person said something about it. Because you've got to think about what is it all going to cost, and how do we know how many people would want this also, and is it really going to be something that drives the business forward, or is it just going to be something that satisfies 2 or 3 people and makes me feel good? That's really hard, because I hate disappointing people, but we can't answer every request. With that in mind, there's always stuff in the works that will happen, and stuff I'm really excited about. However, we have some rivals in the industry who have taken to borrowing some of my ideas, which we don't appreciate, and so there's not much I can say about it. But there are 3 or 4 really interesting things in development.
So you've made an impressive product here. I mean, walking me through it, helping me set it up, using it. Do you see yourself expanding? Does Dashboard expand outside of portable workstations? Are there other parts of woodworking or tools you'd like to get into, or are you sticking in this lane right here?
We intend to increase what we offer with new things rather than iterations of existing things, because we've done a lot of that and it's exhausting, and I feel like we are where we need to be with our core products. So, like I said, it's really hard to envision new things that might just be sort of too niche-y. We would like to, in order for us to really do dynamic things, we need to grow more. And so, we need a consistent focus on becoming more well-known, and just, I need to demonstrate better the things we have now.
So you talk about growth, which any company, big or small, I'm sure is always focused on growth. What is your ultimate goal for Dashboard? Do you have an end game? Is it, I'm throwing things out there, is it X amount of dollars? Is it to get a certain amount of patents? Is it a certain amount of customers? Do you have a benchmark? Is there something that is the goal of Dashboard?
I would love it if Dashboard became considered to be among those kinds of industry names of Festool and Muffel and whoever else, just like as legitimate as they are. And I don't think that they have anything on Dashboard in terms of quality or service or innovation. So, the more that we can just increase awareness about what we are, if we can get more recognition like that, it would be very satisfying.
You talk about a goal, wanting to become on a scale such as those companies you listed. How important is it when you're running a business, you're dealing with innovation, with creation? I mean, you've got your hands on every part of this process. How important is it for you, or how do you stay focused on a goal when you're trying to do all those other things?
Well, I think all the other things put together sort of lead to the goal. I don't necessarily have to think of the goal separately. Like anyone who starts a business, I like to make some money. I don't think about that. I mean, I get a paycheck now. I didn't for a long time, so that's nice. Nobody's rich here, but we're able to progress. So I don't think about it in terms of money necessarily. But so, like I said, just like whatever my legacy is, if there is one, I would just hope that the Dashboard could be known as something that was good, and that we treated everybody well, and we were honest and did the best we could.
So running Dashboard, you're the CEO. For the audience and for those who are maybe considering starting a business, what does a typical day for you look like as a CEO of a business?
I'm the first one out of bed in our house before dawn every day. I'm immediately, checking emails, have my first cup of coffee, and responding to people as soon as I can. Communicating with other members of the team who are not going to be awake for a couple of hours to read that. And there's social media, which is a big deal, because I do all of that. And after that, after I have a little bit of something to eat, I do my exercise in the morning. I run, I ride, I lift weights. And then it's breakfast time, more emails. I might look at a few websites that have nothing to do with woodworking, just a few side passions. And then I'm off to the shop. And I'm responding to emails again, returning calls, and I'm thinking about product development, trying to solve problems with things that have gone wrong, and just thinking about what the next hill is that we have to climb. So it's a very full day. I leave, I go home, and it used to be that I would continue all that stuff after I get home, but I'm at the point where I don't always need to, so I tend to tune out for a couple hours in the evening because I kind of have to.
You have a busy day. There's a lot going on. What has been the biggest lesson you've learned of running a business? Or if it's more than one, but like, what are those like, wow, if I had to pass this knowledge on about what it's like being a business owner, here's what it is.
You need people around you. You cannot do it yourself. No matter how skilled you are, you have limits as a human being. And I think, I wouldn't be here if I hadn't been lucky enough to encounter the people who are working with me. So, I'd say find those people. That's the biggest challenge to growing something that's bigger than just you. Because I was struggling terribly as a one person, but and like I think I said, like I never planned for this thing to happen. It's just like one thing led to another, and there are probably a lot of people who have the same experience, and it was a lot of coincidence, that came into play. Like one person arrived and totally out of the blue through an association with someone else, and stayed, and then another person came, and another person came, and so I've been really lucky to have met those people who can do things that I can't. So that's the lesson. Like if you want to make something significant, you've got to find other good people.
How do you handle setbacks when those things don't go the way you planned, when something falls through, when the plan doesn't happen? How do you handle that?
I think I learned a long time ago, before Dashboard, that getting upset doesn't solve a problem. And it's such a natural reaction. And I think if you can learn to prevent yourself from being like really emotionally broken by something when it goes wrong, then it's a lot easier to solve whatever the problem is, because that emotional thing will just get in your way. So, obviously experience makes it's easier to get past that response. And I've had a lot of experience with problems. So, on one hand, every problem is an opportunity. Some problems have opened my eyes to things I never would have considered otherwise. So it's like, things will definitely go wrong almost all the time, and you get used to it. And I used to let it really break me up for a while. And the intensity of that upset is not as great as it used to be. I guess just I'm used to it. And so, I'm never really high and I'm never really low. So it just makes it easier if you're kind of in the middle somewhere to keep moving.
I imagine if you become static, you're in trouble.
I mean, there's always a solution if you're able to look for it. Yeah, I mean, I think, some people get stuck with a problem. I mean, I got stuck with not being able to figure out what the outrigger was for 2 years. And so, I mean, that's not an existential problem, but it seems like problem solving is something, I was born to. So I kind of relish that. And I mean, some problems are like, well, this is something that's sort of interesting on the sideline of my life, and I'd love to figure out an answer, and doesn't really affect my daily existence. And other problems are like, oh no, something went really wrong. We have to fix it right away. So I'd rather have the first kind of problem than the second one. But, with practice, you just get better at dealing with both of them.
So on the other side of problems and those hurdles, when it comes to successes, how do you define success? And what does that look like for you personally, professionally, as a business?
If I am to be known for something, I'd like to have made like a useful contribution to the craft. And not everybody perceives contributions the same way. Like, some people are really focused on what something costs. And if it costs more than a certain amount, well, it's garbage. And I can tell you it costs a lot to do what we do. And so a lot of people complain about that. And it's not, okay, it's not for them. If I could do it for $2, I would do it for $2, but it costs more to do what we do. So with that in mind, it's really, really important to make sure that people get the value that they're paying for when they buy something from Dashboard. So, I mean, we turned ourselves inside out 100 times to ensure that. And anytime there's a problem, we're on it immediately. We will solve it. We will make that person whole. So I want people to think that, they can trust Dashboard, because we're not a faceless corporation. We're just people. And I sort of my personal legacy, like I'd like to have made a useful contribution to the craft, and I'd like to be considered as a decent person.
So you mentioned a little bit about legacy. When you look back at your journey, so from Dashboard to this point, I know there's a future of Dashboard. You talk about, you got some stuff coming, but to this point, from day one, day zero to day, what are you most proud of?
I can show you.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I think I know what's coming. I think I need to move my iPad here because you gave me a hint at what might happen. So I'm gonna hold this and you do what makes you proud.
Okay, well, I'm gonna talk to the camera right now.
Go for it.
I talked about when I bought the Festool table and how it disappointed me by moving around. So what I'm most proud of is that we have created this structure so that I can do this and just set it down. And it rings like a bell. It's tight and solid and rigid and lightweight, and it just doesn't move if you don't want it to. It's a great surface to work on, and I'm sure if you have one, you'll enjoy it.
I really enjoyed my time with Rob, and I want to extend a special thank you for him taking that time to come out all the way from Colorado to visit me in Virginia. He has an amazing company, an incredible story, and all that advice. I hope you'll take a moment and check out his website. It's in the description of this video. Get to know him, get to know Dashboard, and see the incredible work that they're doing for the industry. With that, if there's a company or a woodworker you want the TWG audience to know about, leave a comment below and tell me. I'd love to connect with them. With that, enjoy the build.